Salman bin Abdul Aziz inherits a major crisis in the Middle East as he becomes the 7th king of Saudi Arabia. All weekend, dignitaries arrived in Riyadh to pay their respects to King Abdullah, who died Friday at the age of 90 after being hospitalized with pneumonia. The late king is being remembered as a progressive reformer who provided the kingdom with 20 years of stability. His designated successor, King Salman, faces many domestic and external challenges, including the collapse of the pro-Saudi government in Yemen, the rise of Islamic militants in Iraq and Syria, and plunging oil prices across the world. Joining us from Riyadh is Mohammed Al-Hazin. He's a media consultant for the Saudi Ministry of Higher Education. And also with us from Jeddah is Khaled Batofi. He's a journalist and assistant professor at Prince Sultan College for Tourism and Business. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with you, Mr. Batafi, in Jeddah. First of all, King Salman, of course, coming at a time of heightened crisis right on Saudi Arabia's doorstep, and that is Yemen, the first big challenge of this new king's rule.
Well, of course, Prince Salman is very familiar with the file, the Yemeni file. Let us not forget that his brother Sultan was the one responsible for ages for that file, and Prince Salman is one of the decision makers, and that's one of the hot files that were almost forever concerning us. In the recent years, especially this last few months, there was a lot of trouble going in there, and maybe some surprises as well, because the Houthis, who were, which is a very small minority of the Yemeni population, about 5%, are taking over the capital and some of the major cities, and they seem to be on the run to control the government. For us, this is a problem because the Houthis is the proxy of Iran and the agents of trouble on our borders for our arch competitor in the region, Iran, which is involved in Iraq and Syria and Lebanon, as well as Bahrain. And they are also trying to stir trouble in the eastern region. I think this is a major issue for two reasons. One, it is related to Yemen on our south border. Second, it's part of the full picture. It's part of the issue with Iran that's running all these agents around us and who are threatening us. So I believe King Salman will be concerned very much with this file, and I hope to hear soon about some steps to show Saudi Arabia and the Gulf regions stand on these issues.
Mohammed Al-Hazan in Riyadh, do you agree with that? And could you see any Saudi intervention in Yemen, like we saw, for example, in Bahrain? And how much do you agree that the Shiite rebels are a proxy for Iran in all this?
Well, let me start by saying that when King Salman became a king, he gave really delivered very, very important speech. He assured the country and the worldwide that the policy of Saudi Arabia will stay the same as it was since the founder of Saudi Arabia, King Abdul Aziz. So it means really that nothing will change in terms of how to deal with issues, whether internally or outside.
But the situation in Yemen is very different.
Very confirming. Well, I mean, it's still, I mean, they were dealing with the issue since a long time ago, since it started, which means they will not stop and come up with the new ideas. That's the thing. I mean, the good things about Saudi Arabia, it's a very stable country in terms of the policy. I mean, when you have a new king, it doesn't mean that we're going to have a new, different policy. And that's what King Salman assured the whole people in Saudi Arabia and around the world.
That's right. King Salman did promise continuity and stability. But in the region, there is not continuity and stability. We have Syria still in flames. The Islamic State has struck against the border with Saudi Arabia. There's a war going up. Iranian competition, perhaps even a rapprochement with the United States over the nuclear deal. There's some influence of Iran in Beirut and, of course, in Baghdad as well. these are big regional challenges for the new king to face, continuity or not.
Okay, well, like I said earlier, I mean, this issue is not, I mean, the Saudi Arabia is not closing the eyes on what's happening. They know truly what's going on in all these hotspots since they started. And the same thing with like other issues before, like Arab Spring and you name it. All these things are dealt with in a very wise and clever, really solution, which really proved at the end that Saudi Arabia takes really the right decision at the right moment.
Khaled Batafi, do you agree that Saudi Arabia has made the right decisions since the Arab Spring and is now one of the leaders in the Islamic world in the Middle East?
Well, they tried what they could. In Bahrain, they could send troops because Bahrain is part of GCC and they have security agreements, and the Bahraini government invited them. It's a different story than Yemen. In Yemen, we cannot send troops and we cannot get involved directly. We could support and still insist on the GCC initiative. We could work with the United Nations and the Security Council on this issue, but we cannot go directly or get involved. This is the problem. In Egypt, there was, you see, every case is different. Right. In Egypt, it was possible to support the army and the Sisi government to instill stability in that country and move on.
Mr. Badafi, do you feel that Saudi Arabia, of course, has backed the military government in Egypt? It has also pushed for the ousting of Assad and has seen itself very much on the opposite side of the United States when it came to the Arab Spring, when it comes to the civil war in Syria. Is that a big problem going forward? Do Riyadh and Washington need to patch things up and get on the same side strategically?
Now they are getting to see our point of view. You see, the problem with the United States, sometimes they don't consult their allies and friends in the region. It happens when they invaded Iraq against Saudi advice and their friends in the region. And it happened again with Obama when he insisted on supporting the wrong side and taking, for example, a stand in Bahrain and Egypt, supporting the Morsi government and the opposition in Bahrain. And as it turned out, the Saudis were right, because we are here. We know more than anybody else. We live in this region, and we are directly participating and directly influenced by this event. In the United States, it's just a region far, far away that their interests are different. Their interests might be the oil or the Israeli security. So there is different of perspective on the issues. But all in all, as friends and allies, they should have consulted us. Now they are doing so, and I hope they would listen to our advice.
Mohammed Al-Hazan, do you agree with that the Saudi view of stability in the Middle East has now won out against the visions of the Arab Spring? And where do you see U.S.-Saudi relations going from here with the new king?
Well, let me start with the second part of your question about the relationship.
Sure.
I think President Obama summarized it when he made a comment about King Abdullah's death. He said he was a key partner in strengthening the relationships between the two countries. And I believe that the United States realized that Saudi Arabia is doing all the best to have stability in the region. And when Saudi Arabia really intervene in any issue, usually it takes a long time to study what's going on around. I mean, if you notice, since even the invasion of Kuwait, Saudi Arabia didn't take a decision right away without studying the whole variables surrounding the issue to take the decision which it believes that to be the right. And it proved most of the time that they take the right decision at the right moment. The issue in Bahrain and Egypt also proved the same. So that tells us how Saudi policy really, the politicians in Saudi Arabia move. It doesn't really, nothing would drag them, or nobody would drag them into a dilemma that they might not get out.
Khaled Batafi, can you tell me what you think the consequences will be if there is a deal between the US, Iran and the world powers over its nuclear program? How will Saudi Arabia react?
Well, if the deal will get us for real of the nuclear, the nuclear threat, then that's a great thing to happen, and the Saudi Arabia welcomed this negotiation. But if it's going to be dragged out negotiation to just win some time, to play games, and to win some influence with Washington, now that's what we can't allow. This is one thing. The other thing is what this deal means. Well, it's a good thing to get rid of the nuclear threat, but it's also important to get rid of the Iranian influence and aspiration in the region, involvement in every Arab countries, and not to find this deal or to have a secret attachment to the deal to allow the Iranian to keep increasing their scope of influence in the region.
And last question to both of you. First of all, Mohammed Al-Hazan, oil prices below $50 a barrel. Saudi Arabia says it will not cut production, even though it has expensive budget items. What's going to be the effect for the new king, and how long can it last? Will you cut production?
Well, see, the Minister of Finance made a comment I think everybody paid off to. He said that the budget of Saudi Arabia will not be affected that much, even if the price of oil went below $50. It means that they calculated the budget exactly to the right price, not to the movement in the prices. So whatever happened to the prices, usually they are calculated ahead of time how to deal with the problem if it happens. So what's happening now in oil prices, I don't think it's always like going to hurt the country. No, I think it might be beneficial to the country because, as you know, that there are alternatives. If the prices shoot up more than $100, it might move into introducing new, alternative for oil, and that would be really the disaster.
And Mr. Butterfield, do you feel that lower oil prices also serves a strategic goal and makes it difficult for Iran to spread its influence around the region?
Yeah, of course. Saudi Arabia didn't choose for this to happen, but since it happened, well, I'm not very unhappy about the effects of this reduction of oil prices on Iran and Russia, because they are the main powers in steering war and destruction in Syria and Iraq and now Iran in Yemen. So if this is going to push them back, well, that's a good byproduct of the oil price reduction. And I would add that Saudi Arabia can survive with $20–25 because the cost of oil production is just $10 to $15 a barrel. It's the cheapest in the world, and that's make us. We will make profit if anything above $15 or $20 a barrel. That's not the case in Russia and Iran.
From Jeddah, Khaled Butterfi, thank you so much for joining us, and also from Riyadh, Mohammed Al-Hazan, thank you so much for joining.